Today, I would like to explore with you why relationships, people appear to be in relationships with you in various shapes and forms to contribute to your vision. This I can honestly say from personal experience and working with thousands of entrepreneurs over the years. People appear to be in harmony and in contribution with your vision as you appear to be in harmony and in contribution with their vision. Thus, I titled today's conversation Mind Map to articulate the point. Everyone contributes to your vision as you contribute to theirs. $1 million relationships. And I say this not to limit relationships, but rather to point to the truth that every $1 million that I made, including my first $1 million, if I connect the dots looking backwards, I can honestly say that there were many relationships that were involved with facilitating the first $1 million and the subsequent millions of dollars that flowed afterwards. As you may know, I've been an entrepreneur full-time since 2009, 16 years full-time entrepreneurship. I wrote a book. You may have this book. If you don't, I recommend getting a copy of this book. I'll link in the description to it, called The Direct Path to $1 million. Turn what you already have into a fortune. See, it is key to acknowledge that people are interested in what you are offering. They're interested in your knowledge, your wisdom, your expertise, your reference experience, your stories, your life experiences. And you can turn that into a successful business in a way that is mutually beneficial. Now, not only when I say $1 million relationships, and not to limit relationships, just to articulate the point, not only am I referring to your clients, the clients that buy your products and services and benefit greatly from it, I'm also referring to ongoing business from those clients, as well as, and I'm going to focus more on this today, the various people that are involved directly and indirectly to acquiring those clients, involved with acquiring those clients, delivering the products and services, fulfilling on the products and services, and everybody that supports your business. And not only does the relationships appear to be in harmony with your vision, you also benefit them greatly. As in, you may offer them compensation, they may have wonderful life experiences with you, they enjoy working with you in some shape or form, they learn, they grow. Everyone benefits greatly. To see it this way, it removes all the confusion surrounding relationships and actually allows those ideal, harmonious relationships to emerge. I talk about this in the book. As you may know, as we've been exploring on this channel thus far, I am a fan of exploratory conversations. I love having conversations with people. As a matter of fact, yesterday, I'm here in Houston, Texas. We did a meetup for members of Flow-Based Prosperity, my group coaching and mastermind service. And we stayed up talking till 1 o'clock in the morning. We started at 2 p.m. And I was having so much fun having conversations with everyone. And I was getting to know everyone at a deeper level. Now, over the years, being an entrepreneur for 16 years, I've had so many conversations. And I like to be involved with conversations on a daily basis because I find that not only from the revenue side, I can come up with innovative products and services that genuinely, that is what they're looking for. They're ready to go. I also come up with insights and perspectives to put into the various videos that I make. One of the questions that I was asked yesterday is, how is it that you never run out of things to talk about in your videos? And also, do you ever run out of ideas? Do you ever feel stuck prior to making a video? As in, you don't know what to talk about. And I said, no, that is not the case because I remain in flow. While you're in flow, everything happens naturally and spontaneously and effortlessly, including ideas of what to talk about, what to share. While you're in flow, you're also able to listen and understand and relate to another individual in a harmonious way. And you can see clearly how they contribute to your vision. And you see clearly how you can contribute to their vision. And it is always mutually beneficial. Now, one of the things we talked about is in my book, I mentioned optimize, automate, delegate, and eliminate. This is how we can grow and scale a business. Now, if a person thinks about optimization, automation, delegation, and elimination, and or, as you know, my ride, optimization, automation, delegation, elimination, part or in whole, or in combination. If you think that, okay, it's really hard to find these people that can help me optimize my business, automate my business, delegate my business, or delegate aspects of my business specifically, and or eliminate parts or whole processes, etc., that I do in my business. I recommend releasing identification to that thought. Why? Because as we acknowledge that people are appearing to be in mutual harmony, and I don't know if you saw the video that I released on my other channel, I say there's only being. And when we acknowledge that there's only being, what happens is the illusions of separation, the illusions of not being in harmony dissolve. And practically speaking, for the entrepreneur, this results in wonderful conversations that do not feel force-based with respect to prospecting, lead generation, client acquisition, etc., including revealing the people that genuinely want to do the things that contribute to your vision. In other words, if we do not have resistance, that people appear to be in harmony, that some way, somehow, they appear to be mutually supportive, then we see that it actually happens. It actually happens. And people show up. You may get ideas to optimize parts of your business, which I would like to explore this with you. Again, I get into detail in my book. I recommend getting it. But we'll explore in detail here because one of the things that I had mentioned is that I would like to further expand upon and give reference experience examples, not just from the 3 businesses that I was involved with. I built an IT business to success from 2009 to 13, but the thousands of businesses that I've consulted with in the areas of innovation, sales, marketing, operations, finance, and leadership. And I have found thousands and thousands of ways. And what I have also found is that you don't need to force yourself to do these things here. They happen naturally as you acknowledge that there is no separation. Now I'm going to link to the video on my other channel where I discuss this. I recommend watching it. Because all of this we're talking about here is a natural result of knowing that there is no separation and that everyone is in mutual harmony. And you'll actually see it. How do I know? Talent, people that I've worked with, people that I've brought on as team members, clients, business partners, joint venture partners, vendors, what I have experienced, and this has been going on for 16 years being an entrepreneur full time. They just naturally appear. They just naturally show up. I don't even try to get people. I don't try to go out looking for people. They just naturally emerge. Yes, I'm out and about. Yes, I'm having conversations, but like we discussed in the last video, which I'll link to in the description, prospecting, lead generation, client acquisition, and all these business terms and these kinds of initiatives naturally arise while in flow. Same is the case with acquiring people, discovering these relationships that are mutually beneficial. And it could be vendors, clients, team members, mastermind partners, you name it. Wholesalers, suppliers, they naturally emerge as you know that everyone is in harmony with your vision. And you are also in harmony with their vision. And why I say it that way, very precisely, is that if a person thinks, I'm taking away from this other person, what happens is they generate that illusion. That is what their experience, their articulating is like. And that's not natural. Is it natural? The natural way of life is flow. And so relationships can be flow-based as well. And in the book, as you may have read, or I recommend getting the book if you have not, you know I talk a lot about exploratory conversations. So what I do is I meet people everywhere, out and about. We do the events. And over the years, I've met so many people, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And I never try to force the relationship, and I never force a decision. Either I don't force them to make a decision to work with me. I don't force myself to make a decision. I trust that naturally it aligns. In other words, let's say I meet someone and I think, you know what, they would make a great relationship partner in, let's say, in a particular area of my business. Maybe they can help me with the operations part. So rather than forcing them in that direction and then having them make a decision to work with me and using some kind of trick and manipulative language, etc., to trick them and force them into doing the deal, I trust that the mutual harmonious relationship will emerge, as it always does. So if they are not a match, great. It doesn't mean that I won't discover that there is a person that is a match. You know how many times where I met people and I thought that, oh, this would be an ideal person to work with on the operations side of my business. They can help me. They can be the person that I can delegate work to. Yet what I found out was they weren't a harmonious match. They were someone that I was having an exploratory conversation with, and I got an insight to put in one of my videos, or I learned something about the way they go about doing things, which is very helpful. Yet they were not a match for the particular aspect of my business that I would like to delegate, which is perfectly fine. And rather than forcing them to decide, or forcing myself to decide to work with this person, which is just based on wanting, needing, waiting, rather than just being in perfect harmony, by just letting it be, letting them be, letting myself be, what I found afterwards is I ended up meeting someone that was a harmonious match, and the decision happened naturally. Thus, I also want to talk about today decisions in flow. One of the things that we talked about yesterday is decision. And I said that, you know, decisions happen naturally for me. I don't force myself to make a decision. I don't see it as a problem if I have not made a decision on something. Decisions happen naturally for me. They happen naturally while in flow. And so, high level, we could look at it this way. We could say, if the decision is to be made, it is made. It just naturally happens. So let's say I'm working with someone. I may say, you know, let's work together. So I made a decision. I decided that I wanted to make a proposition to them. So they say, yes, let's work together, away we go. It just happened naturally. I wasn't trying to convince them. I wasn't trying to convince myself. It happened naturally. Now, let's say I have not decided. A great example would be when we did the event yesterday, we found a perfect place to have coffee. We found a perfect place to have lunch, but I didn't know prior to landing here and booking the hotel that I'm staying at that these places would emerge. It really does work like that. As you are confident that things naturally play out in a harmonious way, mutually harmonious, which includes with environments, with resources, etc. As you're confident that reality is that way, everything appears naturally in flow. I did not need to decide. The decision happened. And so we found a wonderful place naturally. We found two wonderful places, a place to sit down, actually three. We found a spot to sit down, have coffee, talk. We found a spot to go and hang out, beautiful place, and have some lunch. And then when we got back, we found another beautiful place to hang out and talk till 1 o'clock in the morning. No effort, no forcing the decision. So if I have not decided, that is a decision. If I have not decided yet, I have made a decision not to decide yet because I trust that the decision happens naturally. So with respect to everyone contributing to your vision, you have a vision. Let's say you have a product and service, an idea. Yet you're not a fan of the operations. You love creating the product and service, and you like making content related to the product or service. But everything else you're not a fan of. Perfectly fine. It doesn't mean you have to force yourself to do those things. You can, if you would like, delegate that. You can eliminate parts of it. You can automate. We'll explore what these are in a moment. You can optimize in a way where you can do what you love to do, and you can optimize, delegate, automate, eliminate everything else, and you'll see that the relationships that are involved, some shape or form, as mentioned, not just the clients, but also the vendors, the team members, etc., everyone involved, mastermind partners, joint venture partners, they just naturally show up in flow. Because you know that reality is this way. It really is this way. It's only the illusory person in mind that thinks in terms of separation, that can suggest that it needs to be force-based, people don't want to work with me, etc. But in the silence, that person is known to not exist. Again, I recommend watching that video because I articulate it very precisely in there. I'll link in the description to it. So with respect to decisions, decisions happen naturally. They're not forced. I don't pressure myself to make decisions, nor do I pressure people to make decisions. They just happen. If they move forward with the deal, great. If they don't move forward with the deal, great. I know certainly that there's always a match, and it happens. If something feels off or unclear, that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with me. We may explore the conversation further. Again, in the book, I talk about keys to exploratory conversations. So you can have conversations like this, like we're having right now, flow-based conversation. If something feels off or is unclear, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you, the other person, me. Just relaxing into the flow, clarity arises. The decision is made. And as mentioned, the decision can be no. The decision can be yes. The decision can be, we are not deciding right now. And that is perfectly fine. All three of these are fine. If we put pressure on ourselves to decide, if we force another person to decide, is that coming from a limited belief which results in wanting, needing? And we don't have to identify with these limiting beliefs. We can release identification to them, as I teach in my subconscious mind program. If you're interested in that, I'll link in the description to it. The way I experience life is the natural way. The way we're talking about here is the natural way of entrepreneurship, which naturally results in acquiring your first $1 million, multiple $1 million, etc., without the stress, without the frustration. And this is what I teach. This is the flow-based way. And also, if you're interested in Flow-Based Prosperity, my group coaching and mastermind service. I'll link in the description to it. So decisions are not forced for me. When a decision is meant to be made, we could say, it becomes obvious and effortless, and the decision happens. We just come to that agreement, a lot of times synchronistically, I find. At the same point, we just come to the agreement. Let's move forward with the deal. We at times say the same thing at the same time. I trust you notice this as well. That's the natural way of life without resistance. Number two, some decisions are immediate, which is perfectly fine. I recommend having a harmonious relationship with time. If the decision happens now, great. If it happens tomorrow, great. If it happens next week, great. It does not hold you back from actualizing your first $1 million. If you think that, it's going to generate, if you identify with that thought specifically, would it not generate wanting, needing, waiting, frustration, etc.? It's best to not think that thought, not identify with it. So some decisions can be immediate, and that's fine. At times, the decisions arise instantaneously. They're not a reactive decision. I'm not trying to trigger someone's belief or insecurity to make a decision. Because what if the person genuinely didn't want to move forward with the deal, and they were forced to make the deal, and then later on they have buyer's remorse? That wasn't the ideal product or service for them. Personally, I find it far easier and more effortless to create products and services that I love to create and fulfill on if I'm doing the fulfillment. Or as mentioned, you can delegate. And you discover these individuals to delegate to naturally in the flow. I'd rather do that. If I do the fulfillment, then I'll fulfill on it wonderfully. I enjoy. I love what I do. If I create the products and services, I'll create it because I love to create those products and services. And because I love those products and services, it's so easy for me to market and sell because there's no resistance and it does not come off as salesy. I have conversations with people and they naturally buy. And then I also genuinely want those products and services to be in the hands of, let's say it's a physical product, of the individual that is going to enjoy that product and service, and they genuinely want that product and service. I don't want to trick them into buying something that is not a match for them. So when the decision happens, it happens. And if you're on the side of making decisions, let's say, to buy a product or service, this helps you as well. One of the things that I like to do in these videos is infuse both the benefit for the entrepreneur and the consumer in the video. I like to do that. So all these things we're talking about here is very helpful as a consumer of products and services, because we buy products and services. Certainly I booked a hotel, went out to a bunch of restaurants, booked a bunch of flights, etc. So I also consume products and services, or I buy products and services from other entrepreneurs. Yet I genuinely want to buy those products and services. So I like to make decisions that are intuitive, that feel right. I don't want to force myself to make a decision. If I force myself to pick a restaurant, would we have found this wonderful restaurant? Maybe I do that. Sometimes I do that. It's not like I'm saying one way is better than another. Sometimes I might do that. Sometimes it feels natural to choose the restaurant prior to flying out, which is perfectly fine. So to respect that decisions can happen immediate, they're still natural and intuitive. There could be an immediate yes or no. Yes is perfectly fine, no is perfectly fine. If a person has a problem with saying no, I recommend releasing that identification. When you say no to something that does not feel right, you say yes to what feels right. I have seen this happen many times, and I've had many conversations with people over the years who said it was really hard for them to say no. And I said, if you say yes to something that you feel like saying no to, are you saying no also to the opportunities that you genuinely feel like saying yes to? So with respect to saying no, we can even look at it. If a person doesn't like the word no, if you say no, you're saying yes to what you truly desire. You don't have to force yourself to say yes because, let's say, a person says, saying no is a bad word. Who said that saying no is a bad word or saying yes is a good word? There's no good versus bad when it comes to yes and no. Essentially, it's ultimately a yes, if you want to look at it that way, because everything happens naturally. And part of it is the theater of saying no to an opportunity that does not feel right, so that you can move forward with an opportunity that feels right, which might not be there right now, but it can emerge shortly after, etc. I have a harmonious relationship with time, so I don't wait. It doesn't matter to me if it takes 1 day, 1 week, 1 month. It's not like I'm sitting around waiting for it. I have other initiatives that I'm involved with my business. I teach this, for example, with sales professionals. We have a number of prospects in the pipeline. I'm not sitting around waiting for the prospects to get back to me. I continue my prospecting. Some of them get back to me this week. They move forward with the deals, some next week, some next month. I have a steady flow of conversations with prospects. I have a steady flow of leads. And client acquisition happens naturally without the force and frustration. There's no desperation. Number 3, not waiting to decide, as we just discussed. I don't wait to decide. Decision happens naturally. When a decision doesn't feel right, I don't interpret that as waiting or procrastinating. It's not time to make the decision. Why do I have to force myself to make a decision? The space invites more information, more options, or deeper inner certainty to emerge, or clarity to emerge. I have found when I did not decide, even though it seems like there was pressure to decide, but I didn't make the decision because it didn't feel right, something emerged shortly after to move forward with, and that was the ideal decision. Why would I force myself to do something and then make that decision, which I genuinely didn't desire to make? As I teach on my other channel, desire means having. So why would you force yourself to desire something that you don't actually desire? So no decision is also a decision. Number 4, letting the decision happen. So while in flow, which is why I teach, make flow a priority. While in flow, everything happens naturally. You don't worry about decisions. If the decision is to be made, you make the decision. If the decision is not to be made at that particular point, there's no shaming and condemning. You don't decide, which is a decision, as mentioned. You decide not to make the decision, which is perfectly fine. Some decisions, you immediately make them. Some decisions, a day, week later, month later, year later, 3, 4 years later, totally fine. They don't hold you back. A person may think, based on scarcity thinking, really, that they're missing out. They have to make this decision now. Force yourself to make the decision. And I can say this because some might say, well, Joseph, you're a salesperson. You like doing sales. I do. And I don't have a problem with sales. And I'm quite good at sales. But my style of sales is very pressure-free. Yet I achieve my numbers. And I also have wonderful relationships. And also the same when it comes to deciding who to work with a team member, that happens naturally as well in flow. So I just let the decisions happen. Sometimes the original opportunity shifts or evolves. Other times new, more aligned opportunities arise. By allowing this without clinging to urgency, the ideal path reveals itself naturally. That's flow. So essentially, I'm at peace wherever I am. Point number 5. Whether I've decided or not, I remain at peace. Decisions happen naturally. I trust that the right decision will reveal itself at the right time, naturally and harmoniously. And the way of deciding, this way of deciding, naturally happening, keeps me in flow, or I remain in flow. Another way of saying it is I remain in flow, and the decisions happen, and I remain in flow by not identifying with a flow restrictor or force to make a decision. And it is aligned with intuition, and this opens up optimal outcomes. So now that we talked about decisions, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday when we met up, and I mentioned that I would make a video discussing it, going into more details, so I trust you found that to be really helpful. Let's talk about optimization, automation, delegation, and elimination. Now, as mentioned in the book, I get into detail so that applying what we mentioned about decision here You can then go about your business, the innovation, the operations, the finance, the leadership, the sales, the marketing. That's how I like to segment entrepreneurship. And then intuitively, you know what to optimize, what to delegate, when to do it, why to do it, how to do it. Same with automation, delegation, elimination, optimization. So let's explore what these are. Optimization is the art of improving what already works. It involves refining your offers, perhaps. You can optimize, as mentioned, in different areas: sales, marketing, operations, finance, leadership. Sales, marketing, innovation, operations, finance, leadership. That's how I like to segment a business. You can segment it whatever way you'd like. I found that to be really helpful to segment it that way. So you're optimizing what already works. It involves refining your offers, perhaps, systems, messaging, or processes to make them more effective, efficient, and aligned with your flow. And if this is not something you're interested in doing, the intention of this video is to trust that some way, somehow, there is someone that's going to show up. It could be someone that you hire. It could be a contractor. It could be a mastermind partner, joint venture partner, etc. People show up in a mutually harmonious way to optimize for you. You may bring on a firm to optimize for you, and that can grow your business. So that way you can focus on the high leverage areas. So rather than chasing more or starting from scratch, you look at what's already creating results and ask, how can this be made better, smoother, or more enjoyable? And by the way, there's so much to discuss. As mentioned, even though this book is quite condensed, one of my intentions is to explore deeply, based on 16 years of experience, the nuances. And if you would like, you can post a question in the comments, and then I'll answer your question in an upcoming video with respect to our conversations here. So, optimization can be a powerful lever that compounds over time. Rather than chasing more or starting from scratch, you look at what's already working, the results, and ask, or what's not working as well, how could this be made better, smoother, more enjoyable? That's optimization. Then we have automation. Automation tools, technology, AI, etc., systems to reduce or eliminate manual effort in your business, take off some of the tasks and projects through automation. A lot of what I do is automation. Many ask me, how do you do the volume that you do so leanly? Well, consider that I had an IT background. I did 10 years in corporate IT, and a number of those years were dedicated to warehouse management systems and processes. So that's one of my areas that I'm quite proficient in. And many people ask me, with the volume you do, generally we see firms have 3 or 4 people, and you do it by yourself, the volume of 3 or 4 people. How do you do it? And I say, through automation, largely. Now, there's an art to automation. And as mentioned, you don't need to figure this out. You can have fun and learn it if you like to learn it, or you can bring someone on to help you. As a matter of fact, if you're interested in me consulting, I'll put a link in the description to my website. You can inquire, and then we can see what availability is there. So there are people that love to do it. I love to do it. I love doing all these areas here, actually. There are people that specialize in very specific style of automation as well, AI automation. Or businesses have processes. They just might not be aware that they have processes. And these words might not be of interest to you, but they may be of interest to somebody else who likes doing this stuff. And they're able to discover what that process is and then refine it through perhaps a combination of automation, optimization, delegation, or elimination, in part or in whole or in combination, or just automation, but they love to do it. It frees up your mental bandwidth and allows you to focus on creativity, presence, and connection. Delegation. Delegation is the practice of handing off tasks that no longer represent the highest use of your time or genius. For example, high leverage use of my time that I found, might not be the same for you, is making videos, having conversations with clients, and meeting people. That is high leverage for me. Everything else I automate, delegate, optimize, or eliminate. And I didn't get there overnight. I trust that the relationships, the resources naturally emerge, and they do. And you don't need a lot of relationships to do all these things. The belief that a person needs a huge complex team just generates a huge complex team. And I've gone into many businesses that have these big teams, and there's just a lot of busy work generated, and the margins are razor thin. So even though they're generating millions of dollars a year, their margins are razor thin because they have all these tasks, all these projects, all these initiatives that they have created, which is not contributing. Although we can say some way, somehow, they can rationalize and say, here's how it helped, this, etc. When we have a heart-to-heart conversation with them, they come to the realization that it was this belief that more means more effective, more people, more effective, more systems, more effective, more complex systems, more processes, more effective, etc. And is that really true? Well, upon having these conversations with entrepreneurs, I have found businesses where this was not the ideal way to go about it. And when they discovered that this wasn't the ideal way, not because I convinced them, we have a heart-to-heart conversation. That's one of the benefits of exploratory conversations. My goal is not to convince anyone. It's essentially we have a conversation and they come to the realization on their own. Now, I also come to interesting realizations and conclusions, which I also share with you on these videos and apply in my own business, etc. But it's interesting how these decisions, these insights and perspectives naturally flow in exploratory conversations. So you can assign specific responsibilities to trusted individuals, whether they are contractors, team members, or partners, so you can focus on high leverage work that only you can do, or you can bring on an operations manager and they can take care of this for you. This creates a collaborative ecosystem where everyone thrives and helps your business scale without sacrificing alignment or flow. And although we can get into all kinds of nuance points in relation to delegation, automation, optimization, elimination, one point that I would like to explore with you is I personally like to bring people on my team or any project that I'm involved with that genuinely love to do what is being delegated to them. They genuinely love to do it. And there are individuals that genuinely love to do those things. If a person thinks, no, that can't be true, that's just a belief. We can release that identification. And as mentioned, these people naturally emerge. The belief is just generating this illusion that they do not exist or it's really hard to acquire them, which generates force and frustration. If we release identification to that belief, these people naturally show up. And when we delegate to them, they love what they do. They may even say, give me more. They may optimize it. They come up with systems. They refine it. And it's so effortless and fun. As a business owner, as I said, entrepreneurship can be fun, joyous, flow-based, enjoyable, end-to-end, morning to night, with no stress, no frustration, etc. It is only beliefs that generate this illusion that it needs to be force-based, stress-based, and frustrating. And that's okay. You can release identification to those beliefs. Again, I recommend my subconscious mind program. I'll link in the description to it. Then we have elimination. So it can be helpful rather than optimizing and creating more work, etc. that does not need to be there. Or automating even by acquiring some technology. Someone might say, well, I put in some technology, that's helpful. Now I have less to do. That can be helpful. Or delegating. Let's consider a powerful option, eliminating. Why delegate? Why automate? Why optimize something that does not need to be done in the first place? Which is why I like to focus on all these areas, because a person may have a bias. They might say, I just want to delegate everything. So they delegate everything. And then what happens is, and I've seen this many times in businesses, they delegate everything. And there's this complex system that they have built as a result of delegating. And they don't keep their finger on the pulse of what's happening behind the scenes. And all these complex systems are built and their margins are razor thin because they've built a very complex system. And one of the challenges that they may have, which I've seen this, is let's say if their lead source dries up or their ads aren't working or something like that, something shifts in the marketplace. Now they have a lot of people to pay, payroll, etc. They might have challenges with that. So I like to, when I consult, keep all these things into consideration. And fair enough, I have 16 years of experience and I've worked with thousands of businesses and I did 10 years in corporate prior. I can talk about these nuances from personal experience, but this is something to consider as well. I recommend having the finger on the pulse. So when you're delegating, automating, optimizing, eliminating, have your finger on the pulse, or bring someone on the team, like an operations manager, someone you can trust, and ensure that they do have their finger on their pulse in these areas. So rather than delegating, automating, optimizing, we can consider elimination. Elimination is about consciously dropping what no longer serves. It may be outdated tasks, unnecessary steps, or entire offers that create friction rather than flow. Often these were once valuable, but they're now draining energy or misaligned with your vision. It's one of the easiest, fastest ways to increase focus and effectiveness. I speak a lot about this in my other channel. Do nothing, I say. That's also what I mean. Eliminate. We can relate that over to do nothing. Sometimes not doing the unnecessary is the way to compound results. As mentioned, by also not deciding in the moment is a form of decision, which results in the way appearing, including the person, that can be helpful. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Very much joyous and fun conversation today, as always. And as mentioned, I love talking about this stuff. We're going on to 40-something minutes. We could talk about this stuff for hours. If you're interested in me responding to a question, or you would like to explore one of these areas pertaining to the book or your business, you can leave a comment below. Thank you very much for watching. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. We will talk soon. Take care.